Welcome to the Practical Ascension Podcast. I'm your host and soul alchemist, Tracy Goody. Stay with me for practical guidance and flow for your modern life through this time of ascension. Today on the Practical Ascension Podcast, I am joined by inner peace alchemist and healer, Teri Gosselin. Teri offers a compassionate, gentle, and encouraging approach to help women who have suffered great loss, whether it be loss of a loved one, loss of self, or loss of passion, truly embrace their authenticity at their soul essence, enabling them to discover their strength within, to persevere, heal from the inside out, and find a deeper inner peace. Her mission is to help as many women as possible feel safe to share their authenticity, receive their gentle encouragement and guidance they need, know their value and worth, and understand that they are stronger than they know and can truly live a life after loss. Teri, I am so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I am so excited to be here talking with you this morning.
Yay. And I know this is a huge topic. And I mean, you see this, you see a lot of people all over Facebook, and kind of a lot of people I find don't really know how to process their grief. And they're kind of like trying to reach out for help. And I really love your approach to this. So I'm excited to dive in. And before we get too far into it, I'd love to hear more about your journey and how unprocessed grief has really played a role for you.
Absolutely. So my grief journey began, actually, we're approaching the 11-year mark. My younger brother passed away suddenly 3 weeks before my wedding day.
Wow.
In 2008. And this was obviously a shock. And having not experienced much grief in my life at that point, to lose your younger brother so suddenly, and when you're in this state of excitement and bliss for your next chapter, it's truly something that is just so, you can't even explain it. Yeah, I mean, it was just really, really, really a very difficult time, and one where we continued to encounter in that first year of marriage. I still went on to get married, have additional pieces of loss kind of follow us through that journey. So it was really probably the most difficult year of my life at that point. And thankfully my husband and I were coming up on 11 years of marriage. So
congratulations.
We've been able to stick it through.
Yep.
But it's interesting. So I found a pattern, actually. You know, life is life. And so there's ups and downs. And in my journey of these last 11 years, many of the highest moments of my life have been accompanied by significant loss. And so, for example, 2 years after we got married, I had my first son, and 2 weeks later, suddenly my grandfather passed away. And of course, it was the day after my brother's birthday.
Oh my goodness. Just all like I have goosebumps, the connections there.
It's been like that literally for the last 11 years. But during this journey, you know, because life continues to move on, even if you haven't because of losing a loved one, you have no choice but to kind of like keep going. And I love resilience for that, but it's also, if you haven't taken the time to truly feel your emotions and kind of grapple with them, and then, you know, go through the stages of grief, which, you know, go not 1 through 5, they're all over the place, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I found that I was never able to come to the acceptance phase. And so probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I knew I needed some help. And so I took that opportunity to reach out, and I started seeing a licensed professional counselor to kind of start working through things. And I was finding, as things were coming up, that I had buried a lot of emotion. The stress of it, and then what it was doing had taken a significant toll on me. So I was in a constant state of anxiety. I was going through these waves of depression off and on, especially after having both of my kids. Postpartum depression was very prevalent for me because I had harbored all these deep rooted grief emotions and just chose to continue to bury them deeper and deeper and deeper. And inside, I was becoming like a shell. I had a beautiful family. I had a wonderful job. I had everything seemingly on the outside was going like perfectly, right? And everything I'd always dreamed of was really how my life was manifesting. Except I was just not who I thought I was anymore. I had no idea who I was. It was really, 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 really interesting to kind of go through the motions of life and just not even really be able to experience the moment, the presence of the moment. I just lost sight of that. So, and with that, I felt like, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I didn't know who I was here to be. I knew I loved my family, but I felt like a robot, if that makes sense.
Oh, I've been there. I have 3 kids. I was at that place as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in 2016, I had a massive health scare. After seeing some signs from my brother, my journey has also incorporated some spiritual things over the course of it, where I met with a medium, and he's come through a number of times through the medium, and learned that one of the signs he sends are dragonflies. And in 20, I know, and it's so beautiful. And I love like the symbolism of a dragonfly too. Yeah. This was like literally the catalyst for the next phase. And so I decided that I had this, after, I'd been working with the counselor and doing some other work, I was like, you know what, there's more to life. I don't want to be this anymore. I don't know who this is. This is not who I am. And because it was a health scare for cancer, and I'm grateful I didn't have cancer. And with that, I took that as, this is the sign that I need to take charge of my life. I need to reclaim it. And so I started on this deep dive and into this next phase, and really started to heal those deep wounds. And it's been a journey the last few years, and a lot of deep inner work. But recognizing those signs from the beginning really helped kind of push this forward.
Wow. So many areas I want to kind of spiral out on, but I'm going to try and stay right on topic here. And I have a few other questions that kind of popped into my mind, but I think that your story too is one that so many people can relate to, and maybe not exactly right before their wedding and things like that, but just in the way that like you said, the life is still continuing to go on. These other big moments are still happening. But then all these conflicting feelings make it hard. And a lot of people, I think they do go to kind of pushing it down because they don't know how to deal with it. Like it's too much, I think.
The overwhelm of it all is it literally could kill you if you keep going in that manner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's easier at the end of the day, and it feels safer. It feels safer to push it down instead of letting it to bubble and like have to confront them. And so that's why I think, a lot of people do it, myself included. And now I know that is definitely not the answer.
No, exactly. Yeah. But this is why it's important for the work that you're doing and the people that are doing kind of similar work too, where it's so important that people are aware that there is another way, and not everybody's going to grieve in the same way, but there's always going to be an opportunity for healing in there, which is so fantastic to see you doing this work too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what are some of the surface level symptoms? And I know you kind of touched on that a little bit too, how they came up for you with a lot of depression and anxiety. What are some of these symptoms that somebody might notice if they have unprocessed grief?
Absolutely. So some of the symptoms they may notice is that they might feel an over emotion over situations or things that come up that wouldn't necessarily warrant that kind of reaction.
Right. Yes.
this kind of anger or bitterness, which then can spiral into overwhelm, stress, anxiety, even blame, blaming others for things, blaming themselves, kind of going into this negative spiral. Then internally, again, they might feel empty. They might feel this kind of not sure what they're doing, kind of like self-worth is low. And which in turn, their love for their self is low. And it's hard to even figure out how to come back to that.
Or even want to heal. Like I know that myself in my times of like depression, like I've even had them like during my spiritual journey when I'm like, I know the steps to take, I know the tools to use, but I don't want to do it for myself. So I'm just going to watch Netflix for a while until I can get the strength to do that.
Absolutely. It's a lot easier to do it that way. And then a couple of other things. And I think part of that too, with what you were mentioning, is maybe a guilt factor. So in particular, when you've lost a loved one, if you make the choice to start healing, sometimes you feel guilty that maybe you're going to forget them or you're doing a disservice to that loved one, even though more often than not, that loved one would not want you to be living your life in this way where you're so upset and in pain. And so guilt is a huge thing. That was something I also had to work through personally. And then another thing which is interesting is, of course, taking to unhealthy habits for coping. Personally, I went through a shopping addiction. And this was my way to, if I was sad or upset or angry, I would go buy something, order something and feel good in that moment, but it never really satisfied anything except have an overflowing closet. So those are some of the surface level things that one might start to see in their life that then they can start recognizing maybe a pattern. And if, for example, if they decided to, if they're a journaler, they might take to their journal and notice like what emotion they might be in at that moment and see what they're doing or how they're reacting or what's coming up for them. And then, of course, looking at the pattern over time to see that, oh, okay, this is something I might need additional assistance with, or I might need to go talk with someone about.
That's powerful. And it's interesting the way you're talking about it. And I can see how, and this is kind of a curveball, something I hadn't planned to talk to you about, but I can see how it would apply to grownups as well. But as you're talking about it, I can even see some unprocessed grief in my daughter, who's 11 years old, and she lost her grandfather, who she was close with, about 18 months ago. And still now, and we work through it and we do tapping and I encourage her to journal and stuff like that. But she is, very, very sensitive, and she's still, I still see a lot of those symptoms in her. So that's interesting to me to see how that applies to her as well.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because a lot of the work that I do is also with inner child healing. There's so many things that bubble up from our childhood that we might not even realize. And oftentimes you suppress it, but it's such a pivotal point of how you actually, move into adulthood and how you handle situations and how you move forward. And so if you haven't addressed some of those things without even realizing, then they might come back to resurface. So actually, since you've noticed that patterning, it might be something that you can even dive deeper in with her to start working through, so it's not something later on that could really impact her in a different way.
And I wonder too if it would kind of like as you're talking about that inner child work, if it would kind of have a compound effect too, that say you had a significant loss when you were a child and then didn't process that. Later in life, whenever you have another significant loss, it would pull all that up again and just kind of expand that even further and make it even trickier to be moving through.
Absolutely. I think that that's absolutely true. And I've even seen it in, my 10-year or 11-year journey at this point, because actually over the last 2 years, as I've done this deep inner healing work, there have been 4 or 5 people that I've lost that have had meaning in my life. And it's interesting because I don't really love this word, but triggered. Back to a lot of the things I was going through when my brother passed away. And interestingly enough, each of these passings brought up something else, that another layer that needed to be healed.
Yes.
And that,
yes.
and so it's just really, really interesting. And I completely agree. So that they can do that over an 11-year span as an adult. Having the same situation happen from childhood to adulthood is 100% something that would likely happen.
Interesting. This has got me thinking on a lot of different, a lot of different levels now. So continuing on here, your journey's taken you to some pretty heavy places, as we've looked at, and you've come out on the other side in a really inspirational way. So I wonder how self-care has been a part of that process for you.
Oh my goodness. Self-care has been a huge process. It's so interesting. As I look back at this, I mean, even acknowledging my shopping addiction, at that time, that was self-care for me. That was helping me through my emotions and what I was feeling. And I didn't put judgment on it at that time. And I still don't. I look back and it served its purpose. But everybody there's self-care for everybody, and it looks different for everybody. There are a lot of things that come up and be like, okay, we'll do meditation, or maybe self-care is getting a pedicure. I mean, it's varied, right? But I think it can look different on any given day for any given person.
Right.
And so in my experience, I've used all of it. I mean, obviously the shopping I mentioned, I love myself a latte with a pedicure. It's one of my favorite things to do, especially now that I have kids. I love to, steal away a couple of moments to myself. But I've also found even just taking 5 minutes to do a deep breathing exercise and bringing myself back into the very moment in awareness, it really is able to then release any anxiety that might be creeping up, because, that's forward thinking. And then even if I'm dwelling on something from the past where I'm really upset over something, just allowing myself that time to breathe, especially in nature, really kind of brings me back to myself, grounds me back into that moment, and allows me to see the gratitude of what I have now in this life and all of the beauty that is surrounded by me.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that, everybody has different things that work for them. And I would never kind of prescribe any one thing. I think people have to experiment and see what works best for them. But at the end of the day, any self-care you give is the deepest level of self-love you can give yourself. And prioritizing and being intentional with it is key. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I can't fit self-care in. I'm busy. I have to take the kids here. I have to work or do all those things. And everyone's busy. Everybody has those experiences. But I think, each day you can probably find 5 minutes, even if it's driving or it's in the bathroom, if you get 5 minutes to yourself alone.
100, like that's my go-to. And I'm happy you're bringing this up, because this is something I address a lot of the time, is making that time for self-care and spirituality. And I started my spiritual journey when I had a newborn, a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. Like if I can find time for it and I can lock the bathroom door for 5 minutes and put on earbuds, then the little fingers under the door, I just turn my back. I know somebody else is out there with them. Like if I can have time to do it then, and it's the same now, it gets busy, but it's not, one thing that I kind of compare is going out, going out in nature for an hour-long meditation, or going into the bathroom to put your earbuds on for 5 minutes. Both of them have value. So it's not like saying, well, if I can't get out to do it and I can't fully commit to it, I won't bother. Anything you can do is good.
Absolutely. I know. It's like you don't need to put a amount of time on it or anything. It's really just setting the intention that you're going to take some time for yourself, because, and I love this analogy, it's really one of those things that kind of hit home when I really thought about it, is that when you're on an airplane, they always tell you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. And so self-care is your oxygen mask. You have to implement that and integrate it into your daily life so that you can care for everybody else.
Absolutely. And I think that too, what kind of tying in what we talked about earlier, I feel like sometimes people have resistance to the self-care because of a guilt, or because of something unprocessed that they're dealing with too. So it's another reason that as you're kind of going into that healing process, you can open up to that self-care for the people out there that find they are too resistant to allow that self-care every day or as often as possible.
Absolutely. And it's just a reminder that everyone is safe to experience self-care and give themselves that love. They are worthy and valuable, and that it's so important.
So true. So now a question that I ask all of my guests, and this has been our entire conversation pretty well, but a time, right? It's because you're an alchemist too. So we really vibe on that level, but a time when you created just happiness alchemy in your life, when you ascended, whenever you moved and changed a struggle into an opportunity.
Yeah. So I would go back to in 2016 when I thought of my health scare after everything, that this was kind of the turning point to shift into this, that there's life to live. And I want to make the most of it, especially to show my children that, you know, I went after my dreams. And it's so interesting that, so I have a tattoo on my foot in memory of my brother. And in it is, so my family is Italian and Irish, but I have an Italian quote, and it says, "Live your dreams." And it's actually intertwined because my brother would always, he quoted movies all the time, and he loved Wedding Crashers.
Yes.
And he would always just be like, "Ter, I'm just living the dream." And so I put that on here as something to remember that by. And I really took stock of that in 2016. I'm like, now it's time. Now it's time to show myself and my kids that you can live your dreams. And so I didn't know what that looked like exactly, but I just continued to follow that intuition that told me that there was something more, that there was something more to this life, and there was something more that I was meant to do here. And so I started the creation of, you know, it's kind of gone through a couple of transformations, but as an inner peace alchemist and working with people to know that they're safe to work through their unprocessed grief, and that there's love at the end of the day, that of course you can never push someone into that, but they have to be ready to take that step and really do the deep inner work and inner healing. But since shifting into that, that has been the happiest I have been. I mean, going through my own healing journey intensely the last couple of years and creating this business out of it has just opened my soul in new ways. And it's so interesting. I never would have thought that this was my calling or purpose in life.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, using my experience and the journey that I've been on to help others, it just shows how, you know, source and spirits and everything work in interesting ways, and that this was likely always my life plan. And so now recognizing and stepping fully into it has been something that's been absolutely beautiful.
Wow. And what's interesting too, what I notice is I'm noticing a common theme whenever I ask that question pretty often. Almost every answer starts with a time of trust, like just of not really knowing what it meant, but just knowing that it was time to trust and to kind of start shifting into something else. And there's like this intuitive theme or this trust theme, but I'm noticing that the more I'm asking this question to more people, that seems to be the biggest thing. Like it's like the divine, it's like the universe is kind of like showering us with these opportunities to make that choice. And then finally, when we decide, yeah, you know what, I am going to be open to that, that's when things start to really spiral into that more expansive, more fulfilling, more healed direction.
Absolutely. It's always, it is 100% about the trust and choosing to trust.
Yes.
It's not always easy to do, but choice, everyone has a choice for everything. And, you know, having awareness around that is huge.
So what are you working on right now? Because I know people are going to want to check you out, and those that are resonating with your message, I 100% recommend you check out what Teri's up to. But what are you working on right now, and where can listeners go to find you?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So I'm working on two things at the moment. One, for the month of May, I kicked off a live journaling challenge in my Facebook group. And I had this nudge a few weeks ago, and I wasn't sure whether I'd be up for it because I'm kind of an introvert, and going live daily is not something that's easy for me.
It's a stretch. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I had this nudge and I was like, I'm going to do it. I am going to do whatever comes out, and that's what's supposed to happen. And I am now, today is day 10. And I've gone live every day, and it's been a fascinating journey.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I start journaling every morning, and then I go live, and then sometimes it's completely just literally live journaling. I haven't written anything, and it's gone through really deep themes of trust that's come up, intuition, allowing your emotions to feel. Highs, there's celebrations, there's gratitude. And then the other day I had an emotional low and I cried on camera and just shared like,
I say, oh, that's wonderful. But yeah,
no, but it's true because we're all in this human experience. And so I almost didn't go live that day because I was almost putting judgment on myself and what I thought others might think. And I'm like, you know what? Stop that thought process and shift into that this is a message that you need to share.
Yes. Yeah.
So I've been doing that. And this was also really, I think, big on my heart because this is the anniversary month of my brother's passing. So I think that this is a huge step in my own healing journey because I would never have done this before now. So I have that. So if anyone resonates with that, I'd love to invite you to join my group over at the Authentic Strength Warriors on Facebook.
Yeah, and I'll link that below too. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes. And then I actually, this week has been an amazing week. I've actually divinely downloaded this most beautiful one-on-one program called The Journey to Inner Peace. And it kind of ties in elemental alchemy and the trinity of faith, trust, and support. And basically it's this divine 6-month journey to transmute energy around unprocessed grief and related traumas, heal the wounds from the inner child, and open your world to consciousness, as well as identify tools that expand your heart and soul to a deeper love for yourself, cultivate joy, and instill a deep inner peace to live the most beautiful life after loss. And so I'm super excited. I will be rolling that out in more detail in the next coming weeks, but if anyone's interested, I'd love to chat about it.
Yeah, that sounds very transformative. I can see, as I'm talking, sometimes whenever I am listening, especially whenever I'm listening audio only to people I'm interviewing, my eyes will close, and just the visual that comes through as you're talking about that program feels so heart expansive and so beautiful. So yeah, that sounds really, really wonderful.
Thank you so much. It literally flowed through me. So I know 100% that the divine helped, I was their channel basically. And so it's absolutely amazing and beautiful. And I'm just so excited about it.
Oh, that's perfect. So yeah, so I'm going to put all those links below, and then people could reach out to you and connect with you on Facebook if they want to message you there, or.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Facebook.
Perfect.
I'm also on Instagram at Teri Gosselin Coaching. You can DM me or connect with me there as well.
Great. Awesome. So now as we're wrapping up, is there anything else that you feel our listeners should know?
Yeah. So I just want to extend some gratitude for having and tuning into this journey with me. But I just want to just share to be gentle with yourself. Allow yourself time and space to feel through your emotions as you navigate difficult pieces in your life, and ask for help. It's safe to ask for help if you feel you're ready to embark on a deeper healing journey. I'm holding space for all of you, and I hope you have the most beautiful day.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to check out practicalascension.com for your free membership, access to guided journeys, energy healings, activations, and more to deepen your practical ascension experience. And grab that all in the show notes below. Have an amazing day.